Hey everybody, so today we're going to be learning from Chapter 2, Lesson 6, when we're going to be estimating with products. Okay, so in earlier chapters we have estimated before, so hopefully this is not a new word for you. So estimate means that we're not going to be solving exactly. Okay, there's something that we're going to be rounding. It's not going to be the exact answer. So already I have a problem over here for us. So we have estimate 11% of $53. And first thing, actually this is supposed to be 19%. So 19%, estimate 19% of $53. First thing we need to do is find a number that's close to, change these numbers so that we find numbers close to those numbers. Okay, so like 19%, well, it's pretty close to 20%, so I'm probably going to round it to 20%. And right here I just put close to. We got to find a number that's close to those percents and dollar amounts. So over here, I'm going to round 19% to 20%, so I'm just going to write 20%. And $53, well, $53 is pretty close to $50. So I'm going to round $53 to $50. So I'm now finding 20% of $50. Okay, and to solve this problem, to estimate my product, I am going to make a diagram. And in this chapter, we're going to be using lots of visual representations. So this is one way that we could make a diagram to solve the problem. So I'm just going to make like a bar diagram. Okay. And on this top half, I'm going to have percent written out. And on this bottom half, I'm going to have the dollars written out, so amount of money. So this is 0%. We're starting at 0% here, and we're going all the way to 100%. Okay, and then on the bottom, we're starting with $0, and we're going all the way to whatever amount this is. So this is $50, so we're going to $50. So this percentage up here, it's really telling us how much percent of $50 are we at. So this says 100% at the very end here, so that means $50 means 100%, okay? If we were in the middle, the very, very middle, that would be $25, and that would mean 50%. We're halfway, okay? So this is how we're going to be using this diagram. Now that we have the top and the bottom, kind of the ends filled out, let's fill out what should go in the middle. So I'm going to divide this into 5 sections, okay, because I want each section to be equal and an equal amount. And I know that if I divide it into 5 sections, I will get an equal amount in each. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, my drawing doesn't look like every section is equal, but we're just going to pretend. All right, so I know if I count by tens, I'm going to get 50. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And these are dollar amounts. So in this section, that would be $10, and then from 0 to 20, that would be $20, and so on. At the top here, I'm going to divide each section to equal percentages until I get to 100%. So I know I have 5 sections, and I know if I counted by 20%, I would get up to 100. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So that's 5. If you're ever struggling with, well, I don't know how much should go in each section, just do 100 divided by however many sections you have. In this case, it's 5. And you'll get 20. So this is 20%. This is 40%. 60%, 80%, and we're at 100%. Okay, so now I have everything filled out. Now I can just look at what 20% of $50 is. So I'm going to look to see where 20% is, and it's right here. Since 20% is here, I'm going to drop down and see what dollar amount is there. So it looks like $10 is right there. Okay. So my answer, 20% of $50, 20% of $50 is $10. Okay, so about $10. And that's my answer. About $10. All right, so we're going to move on to a different type of problem. It's more of a word problem. So let's start writing that down. It has to do with a polar bear and how much a polar bear can eat. So a polar bear can eat 10% of its weight in an hour. Okay, so a polar bear can eat 10% of its weight in an hour, and the adult polar bear, PB stands for polar bear, the adult polar bear weighs 715 pounds. LBS stands for pounds. Now our question is, how much could the polar bear eat in 1 hour? Okay, so let's look at this real quick. Here's our question. How much could the polar bear eat in 1 hour? And we know that the polar bear eats 10% of its weight in an hour. Okay? And we know that the polar bear weighs 715 pounds. So let's rewrite some of that over here. So again, I'm going to be estimating. I'm going to find numbers that are close to the percentages that they gave me and the weight that it gave me. So I'm going to round 715 pounds to 700 because it's pretty close to that. But I'm going to keep 10% where it is because it's a nice even number that we can work with. So we're going to find 10% of 700. Okay, so I rounded 715 to 700. And I know that percent means out of 100. So if percent means out of 100, then 10% means 10 out of 100. And if I simplified this, divide top and bottom by 10, I would get 1/10. So I'm going to use that, okay? So 1/10, I'm going to make an equivalent ratio here. 1/10, and I have another number here, 700. What I want to know is 10% of that 700. So this is how I'm going to find it. I set up equivalent ratio, and I'm going to figure out how 10 goes into 700. And once I do that, I can do the same to the top. So 10 times 70 would give me 700. And I'm going to do the same to the top. So 10 times 70, I get, 1 times 70, and I get 70. So 70 over 700. So I found my answer. So 10% of 700 is 70. And it's going to be pounds, about 70 pounds. And for this problem, I use equivalent ratios. So I use knowing that whatever you do to the bottom, you have to do to the top. Okay, 10% is the same as 1/10. So I use that fraction to create an equivalent ratio here with my 700 pounds. And I was able to find 10% of 700. Okay, last one. We need to estimate so we're estimating again. Estimate 67% of 208. Okay, so this time we're going to use a different strategy. We're going to keep the percentage the same, so we're not going to round the percent to anything. We're keeping it the same, but we are going to round this number. And the strategy that we're going to use is like out of 100 strategy. We're going to use what we know about percents to solve this. So let's get started here, and it'll make a little more sense. Estimate using rate per 100. Okay, so we're using rate per 100 strategy. We know we have 67%. And 67% means out of 100. So that's the same as 67 out of 100. Okay, and then 208, this number, we're going to round to 200. Okay, 208 is pretty close to 200, and we're estimating, so that's why we rounded it to 200. And I'm going to say about, so you should have the squiggly lines. Okay. Now, I know that 67 out of 100, that's one of our rates. So a rate per 100, 67 per 100, and we have 2 hundreds here. So if I just do, well, 67 per 100, that's for 100. And 67 for another 100, that takes care of both of our hundreds. So we have 200 here, and we want to know 67% of 208. We rounded that 208 to 200. So 67% of 200. If we're using the rate per 100 strategy, well, this is 67 per 100 and 67 per another 100. That takes care of both of our hundreds. So now we can just add them up. So 67 plus 67 is 134. Okay, so 67% of 200 is, or of 208 is about 134. Okay, one more thing. So just to sum up what we did here, in the first one we used a diagram to try to solve a percent of something. Okay, so we rounded both of these numbers to a number that it was close to, and then we were able to make a diagram and find the percent of the dollar amount. This second strategy, we use the idea of equivalent ratios, okay, to find the percentage of a number. And for this last strategy, we used the rate per 100 strategy to find the percentage of a number. If you want more examples in the textbook, you can find this one, this strategy, for example 1 and 2, okay? This strategy right here you'll find in the textbook under example 3. And this strategy right here is from example 4. So there's a couple things you can do with this. On pages 138 and 139, they have examples on how to do these problems, so they have more examples. Okay, examples 1 and 2, we use a diagram. So examples 1 and 2 in the textbook, they're using a diagram. Example 3 and 4 are here, which are on the next page. Okay, and you can see some of the similar examples that we did in the lesson in the textbook. And then once you're doing the actual problems in the math book, if you see this orange writing on the side over here, they say what examples to look at if you're struggling. So it says examples 1 and 2 for these first ones over here. For this one, examples 1 and 2, you can look over here, examples 1 and 2. If you have any questions, just let me know.